Well, this past week, two apparently conservative Christian influencers, one of whom is quite ostentatious about Catholic faith, were exposed for some serious, just very serious moral failures with each other, as a matter of fact. And honestly, I'm kind of exhausted by these kinds of stories. The frequency with which they're happening is way too often. I wish I could say that it never happens, but of course that would be unreasonable. But the amount it does happen is really discouraging. And because I'm, somewhat in that world, I've often felt dismayed by the culture of celebrity that gets attached to evangelistic work and all the trappings that come along with it, which, let's be honest here, they're utterly incompatible with apostolic work, which is why nobody should be going into this kind of work or pursuing it with fame and honor as their chief motivation. And yet, because it does seem to be attracting, the wrong kind of people who are causing a lot of damage to the church, to her mission and her credibility, I think we need to start doing a better job scrutinizing who it is we listen to as leaders, or at least leading voices in the church. Christ said that he is sending us out like sheep among wolves, and therefore we need to be as innocent as doves, but also as shrewd as serpents. And based on these kinds of people who are attracting attention under the brand of Christianity and Catholicism, I'd say that we as viewers, because I'm also a viewer, are failing in our duties to be more discerning and more shrewd about who it is that we promote through the vote of our attention. And this isn't just a Catholic problem. Mike Winger, who is a Protestant apologist with a prominent YouTube channel, seems to almost be converting his channel into investigative journalism dedicated to exposing moral corruption that he is aware of in evangelical Christianity. And already he has a lot of pretty upsetting stories to tell. But part of the challenge with this is that the phenomenon of online personalities and social media influencers is extremely new and also quite attractive for young people. I saw one survey that said it was the second most sought after career for Gen Z, for that generation. But it's also extremely saturated with contenders. Lots of people want to do it, which is why I can see a lot of people who might not be able to make it, in the big ocean, opt to be big fish in the littler pond of Christian celebrity, sort of like, the rock bands who can't make it on secular radio. So they brand themselves as Christian bands and console themselves with making it big on Christian radio. Like when the Backstreet Boys declined in popularity, one of their members, Brian Luttrell, opted to release a Christian pop album and rebrand himself in that scene. But when opportunities for the Backstreet Boys reappeared and they started touring again and maybe even recording for all I know, he went back to where things were more lucrative and there was more honor and fame to be had. But whatever the reason, we clearly have people entering this space for reasons other than an authentic calling from the Lord and a desire to serve him and his church, and a willingness to make the kinds of sacrifices necessary to do it with integrity. So I think that the church and the faithful need to be on guard against that and to do a better job avoiding people who might try to position themselves in this way when they aren't meeting the proper prerequisites. And there's a lot that I could say about what I think those prerequisites are, and maybe I'll do another video on that, but this video is about assessing candidates from the outside based on the more superficial things that you and I can evaluate, since we can't evaluate their heart or their motivation or their interior life or the moral failings that they might conceal. But before we look at those criteria, we also, I think, have to start by considering our own disposition. Because if we are ourselves neglecting prayer, suffering from persistent vice, and overindulging in vulgar and profane elements of society, we aren't going to be able to detect it as a problem in others. Our radar, so to speak, is going to be malfunctioning. So if you want to be more discerning about this kind of thing, and I'd argue it's extremely important that we are so that we don't elevate bad actors who will assuredly discredit the church's integrity when they go down in flaming scandal, then we need to make sure that our own houses are in order first. Okay, so the first and most important criterion for a person nominating themselves for this kind of work is they need to be a person of prayer. In John 15, the Lord tells us that apart from him, we can do nothing. So neglecting our prayer life means that we are habitually estranged from him and all the helps that we need from him, all the graces and all the support. And if that's the case, we aren't ready to enter this field. But the problem is you can't know with much certainty what a person's prayer life looks like. But I would argue that there are some giveaways that can tip us off to this fact. Because first and foremost, a person of prayer is going to be a peaceful person. There's going to be a kind of like a serenity about them in their speech, their comportment, and their disposition. They won't seem like agitated and fidgety and uptight or excessively nervous or distracted. They'll be present. They'll be attentive, restful in their soul, and just generally calm as a presence. That isn't to say that they can't get excited about something, but it should be an appropriate reaction to whatever the situation calls for. This is why it's so important to be a person of prayer yourself, because it's a lot easier to detect someone who is or isn't when you yourself are all prayed up. Okay, the next one I would say is really important because I'm seeing this in a lot of people doing this kind of work, and it seems like nobody really seems to think that it's a big deal, but it absolutely is, which is, are they vulgar, especially in their speech? You know, like being based, whatever that means, that isn't a virtue, especially if it isn't attached to charity and goodwill and all the other virtues. Vulgarity is a vice. It comes from a crude and vicious heart. If someone swears a lot and uses vulgar terminology, especially to describe other people, I would say it's a pretty good sign they have a corrupt heart themselves. The Lord said, out of the heart the mouth speaks, and that it's what comes out of the mouth that defiles the soul, not what goes in. He says that in Matthew 15:11. And there are so many other scripture verses that clearly reinforce this teaching. This shouldn't be a new concept for biblically literate Christians. So Ephesians 4:29 says, let no corrupting talk come out of your mouths, but only such as is good for building up others. Ephesians 5:4 says, let there be no obscene, silly, or vulgar talk among you. Colossians 3:8 says, to get rid of obscene talk, along with vices like wrath and malice and slander. And then in Matthew 12:36-37, the Lord says, I tell you, on the day of judgment, people will give an account for every careless word that they speak, which is why people in the position of having a captive audience should be even extra cautious about what the character of their speech is, because they're going to have to account for it in dramatic ways. But if you find they aren't exercising care in this way, even when the cameras are rolling, that's a massive red flag to me. Next one is, do they give any evidence at all that they are motivated by love, including for their enemies? Do they speak with charity when they address others, especially those that they disagree with? Do they seem to have like a genuine concern for others who may be addressed by their content, their audience? Are they promoting charity among their viewers? Do they pull their punches sometimes? For example, if they're addressing someone in a way that could be harmful to their interests, do they make some concessions? Do they allow that person to remain anonymous or unnamed if possible? Do they try to show the benefit of the doubt as often as they can? At the end of the day, charity or love needs to be the fundamental motivator in everything that we do. So that also includes things like rash judgments, which is a big problem in the online world. Do they denounce or condemn people for things they can't possibly know, like motive? You see this all the time, people ascribing motive to other people based on just externals. It's one thing to simply assess the object of moral behavior, but do they go further than that to make the failure as bad as it can be, or at least in appearance? For example, if I say something that is wrong, there are two possible interpretations of that. One is I've made a mistake, maybe a careless one, maybe an honest one, or maybe because someone misinformed me. The other is that I just deliberately lied. Now, the latter interpretation is much more morally grave. But the problem from a remote outsider's perspective is they can't know if it was an honest mistake or a malicious lie. So if they conclude it was a lie and make that accusation publicly, they're jumping to a rash judgment, which is itself a very grave sin. The church teaches that we are obligated to give our neighbors the benefit of the doubt, and insofar as we are able, to interpret their actions in the best possible way. It also teaches that everyone has a right to a good reputation. So to deliberately try to malign that person for your own benefit is some seriously evil stuff, which actually leads us to the next point. Are they prone to detraction as like one of their main sources of content? Is that what they're known for? Fraternal correction, let's all admit, that's a work of mercy, but broadcasting the moral failures of others for public consumption without any attempt to reform your brother or sister privately is a very serious sin. Fraternal correction should only ever be motivated by a desire to secure the good for the person that's being corrected. If your correction doesn't do that, then ask yourself, why the need to denounce them? Now, with that said, public sins and public errors, those do deserve a public correction, but exposing private sins to the public when the public doesn't need to know about it is not a justification for detraction. And as an extension of that, do they find themselves embroiled in a lot of public conflict or controversies? And if so, how do they handle themselves in the midst of that? Do they feed off of it? Do they instigate it unnecessarily? Like owning the Prots, the Protestants, or owning the Libs, or being super based. If it isn't first and foremost motivated by a desire to help others draw closer to the fulfillment of their life's purpose in Christ, then it's another massive red flag that this person is in it for the wrong reasons. Next, and this could be argued to be the biggest one of all, is do they seem to be humble? Or is the small amount of fame that can be acquired through social media going to their head? This is a lot harder to assess from the outside, but some clues can be detected to tip you off if this is a problem. For example, do they seem to draw attention to themselves at the expense of drawing attention to principles, ideas, or even to God? Do they convert current events and topics or discussions into occasions for autobiography? Do they make it about themselves? Do they seem to revel in opportunities to discuss their own work, their celebrity, their unique opinions, or the honors that they've received? Do they treat moral boundary crossing that they might commit as necessary because of their own devotion to the truth, as if they are the great exception to establish moral principles because their work is just so important? Or how do they engage with criticism? Do they always double down when people criticize them or offer them correction? Do they always react harshly to that? Do they always reframe their own apparent failures or compensate for things that they said or seem incorrect or incoherent? Or do they just admit sometimes that, they got it wrong? Andrew Tate pivoting from a loudmouth trash talker before his recent celebrity boxing match to reframing his loss as a form of winning, especially because he made corrupt bets on it, is a perfect example of this. What about modesty? So do they post provocative photos of themselves on the internet or suggestive photos? Do they wear revealing clothing? Do they share highly personal details about themselves and maybe their relationships? Are they boastful or do they exaggerate to the extreme? Is everything, like a huge announcement that you just can't miss or a really big deal, especially when it pertains to them and their professional or even their personal lives? Do they make a spectacle out of their good deeds or their acts of humility? Do they humble brag a lot? Are they able to laugh at themselves and have a good sense of humor even at their own expense, even in the midst of being embattled by criticism or even enemies? This is something that someone like Michael Knowles, in my estimation, seems to exemplify really well. He always has a smile on his face, and he always seems to be willing to not take himself too seriously. At the end of the day, again, when they seem to be more protective or more loyal to self-image and public relations than they do to the truth, this is probably someone to avoid giving attention to. Okay, the next is, are they terminally online? Do they seem to be personally posting to social media accounts multiple times a day on average and with content that isn't necessary to their apostolic work? If so, then I'd say they've allowed their involvement in that medium to take control over their inclinations rather than being led by reason and virtue, which is extremely compromising. That's the kind of thing the enemy can just prey upon and exploit, since habitual scrolling and rash interactions on social media are a compulsion, if not a vice. It indicates a lack of self-discipline. And this temptation is especially strong when you're in a position in which your posts have much greater consequence than they do for the average person who doesn't have a big following. Some good examples of this are people like Matt Fradd and Trent Horn, who both deliberately backed away from platforms like X and only post from remote systems because they just don't want to get dragged into it and embroiled in the controversies there. Okay, here's another one that is more subtle, but is a big giveaway in my estimation. Do they possess wisdom in addition to just facts and knowledge? Because anyone can pose as a faith leader based on their ability to recite memorized information and arguments. But when it comes time to apply those principles, do they fall apart and seem clumsy in the kind of wisdom that they offer? This is something I've seen quite a few times, including at events that I've been speaking at. If you ask the person on stage like standard apologetics questions, they can recite the answer from the template they've memorized. But when it comes to evaluating specific situations or prudential judgments, they don't seem to have a clue because they lack true wisdom, which comes from actually living this spiritual life and not just talking about it all the time. The next one is a big giveaway and should be obvious to anyone, but have they ever lost their temper in a situation in which they should have been more composed? Especially given the stakes of their public image and perception. I mean, these are often staged scenarios with people looking on. If you lose your cool in that environment, I can only imagine how you'd act behind the scenes. Okay, lastly, and not least, do they bear good fruit? Do they have a record of drawing people to the Lord apart from themselves? When you watch or listen to their content, can you imagine a non-Catholic being edified and inspired to join the faith because of what it is that they say and do and their example? Would you send it to your non-Catholic friends with confidence, knowing that they won't be dismayed or antagonized by it? Okay, so that's the list that I've come up with, but I'm sure there are lots of other things that people could point out. And if you can think of some, please go ahead and share them in the comments below. I'd love to see us as a church and as an online community be way more discerning in the personalities we shine a spotlight on, because again, the credibility of the faith and the church are often at stake. And just think of people who may have been converted by a video or argument made by someone who has a dramatic fall from grace because of some moral scandal that they've embroiled themselves in. Those converts who might be dependent upon them might then find themselves questioning their own conversion if they could have been deceived by a person of such low moral standing. But in addition to these kinds of criteria, to be more scrupulous about who we listen to, I'd also love to see more accountability between online publishers. This is one of the reasons I'd like to see a lot more collaboration, including economic collaboration. People keep saying we need something like a Catholic version of the Daily Wire, and there are initiatives like Pelican Plus that are taking good steps in that direction. But I just think that collaboration like that also introduces a lot more accountability. So you don't have to have utterly independent content publishers who don't have anyone to look over their shoulders and who can call them out if they're slipping in their personal or their spiritual or moral lives. Okay, thanks for watching that. I hope that was a blessing to you, that it encouraged you and edified you in your journey with the Lord. And if it did, and if you want to support the work that we're doing as a result, which thank you so much for considering that, because we really do need your help to make this viable. Then there's a few ways you can do that. You can go to brianholdsworth.ca/help, which is obviously my website. And there's some options there. One is to just contribute through my website. The other would be to join us over on Locals, where you can interact with me and other like-minded people. You can gain access to exclusive content where we're doing live streams and I'm uploading videos and things like that. But we're also doing a secret philosophy study with a secret philosopher academic who's joining us once a month to take us through difficult texts that we want to read on our own, but we need some clarification and some guidance on that. So right now we're working through some works by St. Thomas Aquinas with him, and he's a Thomistic philosopher. So if that's interesting to you, join me on brianholdsworth.locals.com. And again, you can check out my website at brianholdsworth.ca/help.